You put there the temple of God, because it changed. The cross changed you. It changed you from your life to the temple of God. Your body is actually God's life. His means to an end. Please write that down. His means. It's His means. It's His livelihood. God sacrificed the Son so that He can have more sons of glory. That's what Hebrews 2 says.
Saints, let me just say to you that God is absolutely and wholeheartedly sufficient in Himself. God does not need my body. My body is not God's livelihood. God is not dependent on me to be His means. God can do as He pleases. I don't want to take out of context what this cult is saying, but we can see reflected even in their theology that they truly believe that God can only enact His will upon earth if mankind, in the Christ consciousness that have been awoken through the teaching of this leader, can come to a conceptual understanding of the will of God. Well, this is exactly what happened in unitary systems, and that's why I refer a triune system, is because in a unitary system of thought, God can not be loving until He's created something in the created order to express that love towards. Therefore, God is ultimately dependent on His created order. When we look at the triune God, this is a complete community that is ultimately sufficient in itself, and it's not dependent on mankind at all.
Which means that the spiritual realm out there is ruled by the devil. And he clothes through mankind, through the way mankind thinks, the earth with that clothing. What do you call the earth then? A world. Jesus says, we are not of this world. But I pray, Father, that you do not take them out of the world. We need them there. So what happens the more you grow and mature and start to develop spiritually? You open the heavens for God. The principalities and powers with which you work become stronger, just like Jesus and Paul and Peter. And you start to give God authority on the earth. And God can start to clothe the earth where there is in the heavens, where God has authority and dominion.
So what do we do with scriptures like, for instance, in Ephesians chapter 2 verse 2, it says that He is the prince and the power of the air, or even in John 12:31 says that Satan is the ruler of the world. Well, these scriptures actually signify Satan's capabilities, and also in James also tells us that the devil walks around like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. Satan is known as the prince of the power of the air, and this signifies some form of rule in the world and also some of the people within it. But we need to understand that even though the devil is allowed to usurp and to use a specific form of authority, God is still completely sovereign. And even the devil does not abdicate God, but he is God's devil and under God's sovereign rule. God in His infinite wisdom does allow, for instance, for the devil to have certain predicates. We see even, for instance, in the book of Job, that the devil has to show himself before God. But nowhere is God duped, or nowhere is God overwhelmed by the devil, and the devil is almost just as strong as he is. The authority in the realm of the devil on which he has authority is with the unbelievers only. Colossians chapter 1 verse 13 shows us that believers are no more under the authority or rule of the devil, but they have been redeemed from the authority of the devil. Unbelievers are caught in the snare of the devil. I'm thinking of a scripture like 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 26. Or they are basically lying in the power of the evil one, according to 1 John chapter 5 verse 19. In Ephesians chapter 2 verse 2 we can see quite clearly that some people are in bondage to Satan because they've usurped and given their will to him. So we just need to bring perspective to this conversation and say, yes, we do acknowledge this, but ultimately God is still sovereignly in control.